Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to your sunset safari from Wild Earth. That is a zebra. My name is James Hendry. On camera today, Handa. I will tell you a bit more about him just now, and this is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
And so back again with this herd of zebra on what is a very blustery August afternoon. Now, I was going to tell you, of course, that we have Zander with us. Now, Zander's full name is Barry Alexander. He's known by the name Zander. Now, I quite like this because, of course, Zander is spelt with an X, and if we were to say it in the Zulu pronunciation, it would be Khanda. If it were to say it in the Shangaan pronunciation, it would be Shanda. So you can call him whatever you like. He's staring at me slightly disconcerted. He has a very impressive beard, and well, he's not looking quite so hipster today because he's got his Safari Live t-shirt on. You are most welcome. Please talk to us through the course of the afternoon. Hashtag Safari Live if you are on Twitter, or questions at wildearth.tv. It's 27 degrees, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This is by far the warmest afternoon we've had for some time. But just have a little bit of a listen and a look at the trees. And you can see this unbelievable sort of wind blowing. It's substantially stronger than any that we've had so far this season, and that's normal. We have these August winds. They blow all the leaves off the trees in preparation for the springtime. And I think it's quite a nice, well, almost sort of harsh scene here of these zebras in the drying woodland and the wind. But I'm just going to move forward and we can have a look at this fellow's kinship group. So that's the stallion there. And he's kind of keeping up the rear. There, you feel the wind now. So he's sort of watching the rear of his group, and he's been waiting almost with us for the start of this show, mainly because the rest of his herd has moved off in front of him, and he's almost sort of here to protect them. That's why the male or the stallion walks behind the herd. And he's watching us quite carefully, and there's the rest of them. We'll move a little bit further forward and have a look and see what he has by way of a family. Right, so starting on the right hand side there, possibly the lead mare. She looks to be pregnant to me. In fact, I'd say that there are at least 2 pregnant females here. If Zander pans slowly to the left, there you can see another one. I think she's probably also pregnant. She is also, of course, relieving herself. That is what happens every time I look at an animal. How lovely. Then to the left of that, one of the stallion's offspring. I'm not sure which mare that one belongs to. And now you can see, as we've got closer to this herd, here comes the stallion. He's coming from the right hand side, and he's coming to make sure that we mean his herd no harm, and he'll put himself between them and us. Very noble of him. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I quite like talking about it because it's a subject that interests me, and I know it's a subject that interests many of you, even if it is almost subconscious. You often ask about fathers and families. We use terms like father and fatherhood and family, and we often want to sort of connect with something that we're familiar with. So, for example, a matriarchal herd like an elephant's, or a matriarchal clan like a hyena's, is not familiar with us. It's difficult for us to identify with. But especially in the Western world, this kind of idea of a nuclear family is something that we identify with. And so when we talk about animals and their social structures, it's often that we get questions or terminology that is very similar to that. So, you know, what's their family structure, or are they good fathers? And what's quite nice about a zebra herd here is that the father actually does play quite an active role. He doesn't, I don't suppose he's much of a mentor to his young sons or his daughters, but he certainly plays a protective role to all of those young offspring that he's got. So this chap appears to have 4 wives, 1 child at the moment. He could well have others that have gone off and left him so far, and 2 pregnant wives. Do a quick communications test. There we go, where the final control is there. I thought maybe they'd fallen asleep, but they haven't. They are still there and waiting. Just to remind you, do feel free to talk to us throughout the course of the afternoon. You don't have to ask questions about what we're looking at. You can ask questions about just about anything, well, within reason. Let's not talk about penguins or the state of politics in America or South Africa. Let's rather talk about the animals, the African landscapes that we're going to see, and anything you'd like to know about this wonderful continent. I'm going to sit with these zebras a little bit longer. While we do that, let's head across to Jamie Patterson, who's being filmed by the inimitable Brian the Thumb Joubert.
Good afternoon and welcome to the windy portion of our sunset safari. And as James said, Brian is back from leave, from those of you who missed the sunrise safari, which means of course that the Thumb is back from leave as well, because of course the Thumb and Brian are very, very close. They have quite the connection. I'm sure you're all thrilled to see the Thumb back, and we're all thrilled to have Brian back as well. And so we are heading off into the afternoon bush. I know that James has been commenting on the fact that the wind is howling. As a result, it seems as though all the animals are hiding. This morning we were treated to lion cubs coming out of our ears. As Brent said, he had the Styx cubs on Cheetah Plains. We had 3 of the Nkuhuma cubs, and we will be heading there a little bit later to check up on whether or not they are still in the same place, hopefully somewhere on Hyena Road. Hyena Road is starting to become something of a good luck charm over the last few days. First it was, we were sitting watching elephants, Dave and myself, and we were actually watching the same elephants we started off this morning with our favourite short-trunked Ellie, and a lion came wandering across with 2 little cubs right behind them. Then on Saturday we had the lions hunting the buffalo, and then this morning we had the lions lying right next to the road, and hopefully they decide to stick around there. I'm pretty sure that there's a male somewhere in there as well, so perhaps he's decided to pop out and show himself. Oof, the wind's blowing the words, you know, when the wind hits it exactly right, it blows the words out of your mouth. And then of course an update on the few of our leopards. Tingana crossed into Torchwood to the east, so Tingana is the dominant male leopard. Karula has gone south with her 2 little cubs. And the best news of the day is, of course, the fact Shanae found in Kanyeni the leopardess that I've never seen, but she went through a stage where she was seen with only 1 of her cubs. And this morning, Shanae found her with both of her cubs, which I think has cheered everybody on immensely. The fact that that cub is alive and well and safe. Who knows where it may be? We're talking about the possibility, especially with the female, that she might be becoming slightly more independent, exploring her world, maybe even got a little bit lost and separated. Oh, little one. Look at you. It's okay, Mommy. It's all right, Shem. Wind is making them so nervous. And for the one on the left, for a very good reason, because she has got a brand new little baby, Nyala. Hello, Fluffy. And all the little baby wants to do is suckle. And Mom's feeling a bit exposed. Oh, there are those headbutts. All antelope, all mammal species do that to stimulate milk production. Cats and dogs do it with their paws. Gunk. The poor Nyala have to do it with their heads. One can't help but feel a little bit for our Nyala mother. Because as tiny as that little calf is, you can guarantee that that is quite a solid hit that Mom is taking. Look at you, little one, with your double stripes. Definitely amongst some of our most attractive antelope. For newer viewers, What I'm saying is Nyala, N-Y-A-L-A. I know that there is sometimes some confusion about the words, particularly that we say in a South African accent. Well, lo and behold, since James has returned, he has brought good luck with him, and he has found a bird that we haven't seen in ages.
Indeed, a bird we haven't seen in ages, a turkey. No, not a turkey, everybody, a ground hornbill, one of 4 hornbill species, but this one not very closely related to the other 3. A ground hornbill, so-called, of course, because it is living on on the ground. Well done, that is correct. Now, I don't know what this thing is trying to eat. They're famed for eating tortoises, but I think this one is foraging in a pile of elephant dung, possibly for the odd termite. There might be 1 or 2 dung beetles around as a result of the rain. I haven't seen any, though. So I think it's probably termites and maybe 1 or 2 other beetles. Things are a bit dire for a ground hornbill, which is largely a carnivorous bird when they have to fossick about in dung. Of course, the ultimate dung-eating bird being the hooded vulture that we watched the other day, eating fresh lion dung, which made us all gag for about a week. I'm quite tempted to go in there and have a look. If he flies off, I'm going to run in there and see what I can find. But he looks like he's fairly engaged, so we probably won't disturb him. I didn't see any others. Or might be on his own. Now, that's quite unusual, of course. They're normally in a fairly standard flock of 3 or 4 birds. But we are right at the end of the lens through some thick bush, so there might be some others down through the back there. You just see the flashes of white underneath his wings there. And there he goes. I love the way they walk. Hello, James Richard. You say ground hornbills finally, hooray. Well, indeed, hooray. I'm very pleased to see them as well. I'm just quickly going to talk to Herbert. Go ahead, Herbie. I think Herbie's been tracking.
Usually of my daughter.
There you can listen to
my father.
Herbert talking.
Far east of where my father.
Copy that. Thanks, Herb. I think Jamie's coming that way now. So Herbie's just found the lions again, and so I'm sure Jamie will head along that way. I think that was her plan. She found them this morning. Right, that was the ground hornbills. If you don't mind, everyone, I'm going to run in there and have a look-see what they were eating. So you can watch me go, or we can go across to Jamie. What do we want to do? We're going to stay here. Okay, right, everybody, here I go. You'll be able to watch my magnificent legs disappearing off into the bush. They're actually not entirely unlike a ground hornbill's legs, actually. Wait 1 second. You can see how far away they were. Come, not. So it was indeed fresh elephant dung that they were having a look in. But, I mean, a ground hornbill is ostensibly a carnivore, so I don't know what they were eating in here. Now this stuff's too fresh to be pleasant. It's quite strong smelling. Give it a week, it'll smell delicious. But there are 1 or 2 beetles in there. And just for our younger viewers, if you do ever pick up dung, don't forget to wash your hands. Yeah, I thought there was a beetle there, but there isn't. Oh, there's a little one, a very small beetle. No, so I don't know what they were going for in there. They're obviously fairly dire straits if that's what they're feeding in the middle of. Righty, on we go. We're going to pop past Treehouse Dam, see if we can't find some elephants there maybe. I don't know if there's any water in there after the rain. And then we'll head off towards the east. Okay. Phew. Let's change this. Hello Aaron in New Zealand. Big day on Saturday in Wellington, Aaron. The Lions from Johannesburg, my rugby team, are coming to play the Wellington Hurricanes in Wellington, the final of the Super Rugby competition. Most of you will not know what on earth I'm talking about. I'm sure Aaron does though. Aaron, the biggest prey that I've ever seen a ground hornbill eating is probably a large leopard tortoise. So the large leopard tortoises, which are, well, they're not very difficult to catch on account of the fact that they're not very fast, but they are quite difficult to get at, the flesh. And of course the ground hornbill, we know, is very good at breaking the shells. That's why they've got that huge chisel-like bill. But I haven't seen them catch anything bigger than that, Aaron. It's quite an expectant wind, this. It's totally typically August. There's a slight smell of smoke on the air, which I quite like. There will be some fires around at this time of the year, but because of the poor rainy season we had, we're not really in any sort of danger of having a severe, what we call veld fire or bush fire. But there is a bit of haze around, and it does smell a little bit of smoke, and that always reminds me of the coming spring. And I love August, I must say. Once we're out of July, I feel like we're going in towards summer, which it's not really necessarily a good thing given the incredibly vast temperatures of the summer here, but if we get some nice rain, well, then summer's just the best. But I like to savor these kind of days because I know that, you know, that they're sort of expectant. Now, Gillian Tamara, very good question. Yesterday you watched me on a bushwalk in the morning, and you say, well, you watched us find 4 different Speke's hinged tortoise shells in one place. They'd been excavated out of a termite mound, and you say, could it have been a ground hornbill that had eaten them? I think it's very unlikely, because the ground hornbill's beak is too big to have got in between the carapace and the plastron, which is obviously the plastron's the bottom shell, the carapace is the top, and there's a very small gap between them, sort of like that. And the ground hornbill's strategy is to actually crack the top of the shell and break it open like that. That's why they've got that great big chisel-like bill. I really don't think that they had anything to do with eating those things yet the other day. I think that was something with relatively weak jaws, but somebody perhaps with very long claws. And my instinct says badger. My instinct says a badger got hold of them. There was one shell that was broken at the back, and the badger, of course, got very long claws, and I think it could have probably just fed on those tortoises by pulling the things out. We know they excavate inside termite mounds, so maybe it was a badger. Right, I'm going to continue towards Treehouse Dam in this blustery afternoon. Let's head across to Jamie and see what she's got for you.
How awesome was that to see ground hornbills once again? It really does feel like ages since we last saw them. I don't know if perhaps they were seen while I was on leave, but I know I haven't seen them in a good 2 months or so. They're really lovely to have them back once again on Djuma. Oh, I've just had a call from Herbert, as James may have relayed to you, about the fact that he is headed across to the lions, and yes, indeed, they have been joined by another lion at some point during the day, and so we shall slowly head across in that direction. We're not racing there just yet, but we will go and see, and perhaps those cubs will be as entertaining as they were for us this morning, because they were thoroughly entertaining. That hug that Amber Eyes gave the one cub was just the best thing I have ever seen with little lion cubs involved. It was so utterly, utterly adorable, because I really thought she was going to get irritated with the cub and bat it away. She's not the mother, and the little cub was being thoroughly pestering and annoying. And instead of that, she grabbed it and pulled it into the lion equivalent of a bear hug, which I've never seen before. It was awesome. And these tiny little joyful moments that we get while we are exploring the wilderness live. Let's see what's happening at Galago Pan. Nothing. Nothing is happening at Galago Pan, by the looks of things. Nope. Nobody's home. But there's still quite a few puddles around, off the roads and away from the main water holes. Because that was a water hole, by the way. For those of you who are new, believe it or not, there is a water hole in there. It's a man-made water hole, and it is a pumped water hole, which for the last few weeks has been one of the only sources of water that we get around here. Then, last week we had 12, 15 mils of rain, and now we've got green shoots popping up everywhere, a much more humid feel to the air, and we've got water and puddles and mud wallows once again. They might not last, but it's definitely a joy to have them. And speaking of all of the signs of spring, James has found some more. He's on a roll this afternoon. Let's go and see which particular sign of spring he has found.
So that is a knobthorn, which in and of itself is not particularly interesting, but upon this knobthorn, everybody, are the first flowers that I've seen of the, well, I mean, I hesitate to say spring, but in the same way that the Wahlberg's eagle comes back round about now, so the knobthorn, some of them will start to give their flowers out now, and there they are, those long sort of pale honey-coloured things, there we go, on the end of the branches. Those are the flowers of the knobthorn, and that's the first kind of sign that the day length has changed sufficiently for the trees to recognize them. It's coming out of its dormancy and it's producing very nice flowers. Now, they do smell very nice, and I would climb up there, but for the fact that the tree is filled with thorns, and because I am not brave like a monkey or a baboon, I am unable to get up there and get you some so that you might smell them. But they really do smell very delicious indeed. Very nice. Amazing that that tree has managed to survive, given the damage that the elephants have wrought on it. I suppose we have also seen one or two flowers on some of the guarri bushes, which is, well, it's unusual. I don't suppose it's unusual, but it just seems very early. Especially, I think, as summer really has only started for some people, I guess, given that Europe is now basically on holiday for the next month. Yeah, summer holidays. I think much of the States is as well. I'll try and find you some guarri flowers. The Natal guarri has got beautiful smelling flowers, and they're so subtle you can hardly see them. Anyway, we'll see if we can find them. But otherwise, I'm sure as you look at your screens, you can see that there's quite a harsh light about the place, and that of course is made worse, well, I mean worse, I say. It's made more harsh by the fact that there's wind, and therefore the sky is that much paler, and it's not helped by the sort of well, very wintry vegetation that we have going. Hello Ashley, I'm sorry, there was a gust of wind there, I missed your question. You wanted to know about something hibernating? A what hibernating, Kirsten? Ah, the bugs and insects. Yeah, a lot of them don't hibernate at all. Some of them do. but most of them die. Most of them only will live for a season, some of them just a few days. But so they come out in their adult form. Some of the moths, for example, don't even feed as adults. They come out, they mate, they lay their eggs, and then the adults die. And then they'll either complete another life cycle during the course of the summer, or, as is the case with, say, the dung beetles, those adults will lay their eggs, they'll die, and then the beetles will, or the beetle larvae will stay under the ground until the next rains come, and then they'll pop out. Now sometimes that can be 2 years, as was the case for many of them, I think, this last rainy season. Cicadas, the same thing. They'll live for a year, then they'll die off and lay their eggs. Well, they lay their eggs before they die, obviously. It's difficult to lay an egg if you're not alive. They lay their eggs down under the ground on the root stocks of various trees. Their larvae hatch sometime, probably during the summer, and they start to feed on the sap on the roots of the trees. And then as the cold comes, they probably go dormant there, and then when the rains come, they dig out of the soil, fly up into the trees, and they mate. And so very few of them will actually survive through the dry season. And I think that's the same as it is for insects and invertebrates most of the way around the world. That sun is extremely bright. Mainly just because I'm staring into it. Hello James Duncan, a very nice question from you, and I suppose you might say that we're having what you described now. You say, do we ever get a false spring, where sometimes the trees will bud early, then we'll get another cold snap and they'll go dormant again? James, we could be having that now. You know, I get the impression with that knobthorn tree that that's precisely what's happening. It might maintain its, what do we say, undormancy into the summertime, but it could well be happening now. I don't think we have it that obviously here though, because it doesn't ever get that cold. Most of the trees here go dormant because of a lack of water and a lack of day length. And they respond not to water, they respond to day length change and not even to temperature. So, you know, it doesn't actually get colder enough for them to have to go dormant like it does in places in the sort of, I guess, the northern hemisphere, where it gets cold enough for trees to have to go dormant because of temperature rather than a lack of sun from the day length. I hope that answers your question. The flies love this heat. They are very enthusiastic. About 80 degrees. And undeterred by the wind. Right, let us see if there's any water in Treehouse Dam. There will be water in Treehouse Dam at some stage, mainly because it is so very vast, and if there's any rain at all, well, there's going to be masses. Kirsten, I missed that, I'm afraid. The wind is very strong. There's some kudu. I'm just going to try and get into a place. Hello, Dispatch Griffin. Very nice question from you, and you're either very clever or you've heard something about this before. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and so you're very clever. You say, is elephant dung ever eaten during dire times, like perhaps we're going through now, except now we've got a bit of flush of green grass from the rain we had? Dispatch Griffin, absolutely. It most certainly is eaten by a number of animals. Most notably, I think, would be hippo. Hippo tend to just eat elephant dung by default. Remember though, this time of the year, elephant dung doesn't have much in the way of leaves. It's got a huge amount of wood in it. And so its nutritious, benefits, I suppose, are reduced from when it is from summertime, when elephants eat mostly grass, and then it probably is quite good for things like hippo. But yes, absolutely, animals will eat will eat elephant dung in order to survive sometimes. And we had a marvelous segment done by Steph during our recent Father's Day TV special, where He squeezed fresh elephant dung into a snail shell and drank what came out of it. Now, I mean, I've heard of people doing that. I'd never seen it before, but now I have seen it. And he put on a very brave face. I asked him afterwards, I said, did it really taste as good as you made out? And he said, no, it was absolutely disgusting. So even human beings can use elephant dung. Now, those are beautiful kudu, and I know that for some of you this landscape may seem harsh, but for me, those subtle colours of the August with the wind blowing, juxtaposed with a beautiful kudu, are just so nice. And there we go. You know, that's interesting. We've had lots of questions about whether or not animals can survive eating the dormant leaves or the brown leaves. Well, there you go. Kudu is eating brown leaves. The advantage being that the tannins will be far reduced, but also so will the nutrition. So they'll have to eat quite a lot of those in order to survive. And if you're a ruminant, you really do have a capacity for how much you can eat before you have to stop and re-chew your food. That's interesting. I mean, I probably have seen that before, but I haven't taken note and remembered it. Very interesting. I might even be doing the same with the leaves on the ground, you know. Hello Nico, you're asking about bushfires and you say when was the last time we had one? There was one on Arathusa 2 seasons ago, so not last year, the year before that. There's no control. Oh, there's a zebra behind there as well. There's no controlled bushfire that takes place here on Djuma. The landowner doesn't believe in it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. So not on Djuma for some time. You will see the odd evidence of fire, so you do get runaway fire sometimes, but there's not going to be anything in the way of runaway fire this year. There is no grass to burn. None of these trees, you can throw as many matches as you like at this bush, none of these trees will burn. They have to have a big understory or undergrowth of dry grass in order for there to be a proper bush fire. So Nico, there hasn't been a fire through here for some time, and there isn't going to be one this year. I'm 99% sure. I'm just hedging my bet slightly there with 1% because biological and ecological systems have a rather nasty habit of not doing what we think they're going to. She's a rather spectacular lady. Looking off towards the dam. Perhaps there's a leopard there. Perhaps she's just staring longingly towards the east, thinking of better days. She does look a little sad, I feel. Then I'm not really sure what a happy kudu looks like. She's got very nice eye makeup on. You see that, Zanda? Beautiful white eye makeup. Very gangster. As Kirsten has just pointed out, eyeshadow. Yes, white eyeshadow. Now, you'll get all sorts of crackpot theories as to why on earth they should have that white lipstick and white eyeshadow. That is quite amazing, actually, when you look at it in that detail. I think it's got largely to do with camouflage. Some people will say that those stripes in front of the eyes are to help reflect light into the eyes because they live in thick bush. I'm not buying that, I'm afraid. I think it breaks up the outline quite nicely of her face. Isn't she lovely? A little bit enthusiastic with the white lipstick, I feel. I mean, she's kind of all over her chin there. So I've known a few girls who've done that once or twice. Okay, let's head down towards Treehouse Dam. You know, it's great to have the opportunity to look at animals like that on something like SafariLIVE, because if you're taking a 6-day or 2-day safari with people who've just come in here, it's so fast. You know, you stop at the kudu and then you want to go and find a leopard or an elephant or a lion or something like that. You don't often get the time to stop and really look hard and close at the amazing detail of an animal like a humble kudu. Now, there is not much going on here. There is some water though. We'll pull out onto the dam wall and then we can see. Strong wind coming from the northwest. That's off sort of that way, and that's pretty standard for this time of the year. Right, let's see what's here. Cindy, very good question from you. We'll just stop up here and have a look at the water. A puddle rather than a dam, I feel, at this stage. Will hopefully fill up at some stage during the course of the rainy season. Cindy, a nice one from you about whether or not we get hailstorms. Cindy, we can sometimes get hailstorms here. It's very unusual. It's much more common up on the high veld, so up on the areas that are, say, I don't know, 1,200 meters multiplied by 3 and a bit takes us to roughly, say, 4 to 4,500 feet and above sea level. That's where we get quite a lot of hail storms in this country, but you can get them here. And there was an amazing flash one they had the other day down at Antelope, which is about 7 kilometers from here, almost completely localized only on that area and within a sort of 1 kilometer radius of the lodge. People out on drive got quite badly injured. It's sitting in a lion sighting. You had to quickly drive away and then get the guests under the vehicles, put them under the cars, because the hailstones were plummeting out of the sky at terminal velocity, sort of bigger than a golf ball. So that was pretty terrifying, but that's very unusual for this area. Very common in Johannesburg, and I mean, most people take out some form of insurance to deal with that for their cars. Right, let's go across to Jamie, see where she's going. Oh, well, I know she's going to the lions, but let's go and see if she's there yet.
We all know where we're going, but we haven't quite got there yet. While James is in the far southern parts of Djuma, we are on the northern boundary, looking across to our Buffelshoek neighbours on the left and then Djuma on our right. One of the most productive roads in terms of sightings that we've had recently. And we're cruising along relatively quickly so that we can get to those lions before all of the other vehicles want to come and see them. Not, of course, that we have any problem with that. The guests can have a wonderful time enjoying those cubs as we did. But it still might be nice to spend as much time as we possibly can with them. Now, it's the oldest set of Nkuhuma cubs that we are with, or were with this morning. That's not to say that others haven't joined, but we were with the oldest set. And the middle set, I suspect, is somewhere around there as well. So we've got 3 different groups of lion cubs of the Nkuhumas at the moment. The oldest one of 3, the middle one of 2 that we didn't know existed until relatively recently, and they didn't seem to know that cars existed relatively recently, so they're not quite likely, so they're not cousins. And then there is a tiny, tiny little set that we've been fortunate enough to watch since they were just a few days old. Was there. It's big when we first saw them with their little flat ears. Their ears hadn't even stuck up properly. And they are also somewhere here. Now, her drainage line that we're going to go through now. But unfortunately for us, it's impossible to get in there without disturbing the area, without doing some massive damage to quite a area. It just makes it very difficult in terms of getting.
Very lucky, everybody. We've just found some elephants, and we were thinking about going towards Djuma Pan, because if you look at the Djuma Dam Cam, there are some elephants there. We've got a few in here. I'm just going to push a little bit of these bushes out the way so we can have a look. Let's see where they move. Wonderful breeding herd of elephants here. Isn't that nice? There we go. And they'll be now generally picking the bark off the trees and trying to get at the inner bark, the last little bits. And that one you're looking at now is having a good time with, I think, hang on a second, let me just look there with my binoculars. Well, not my binoculars, of course. Eating a plant, quite interesting there. That one that the little one's eating is called Dicrostacus cinerea. And now the adult's going up there. She's got lovely tusks. It's called a sickle bush in English, but in areas where you don't have elephants, it forms massive monospecific stands. It's a huge encroacher species. And if you drive into the communities outside, or the villages just outside the reserve, through the communal grazing lands, you find that plant growing in huge, thick stands. And the reason for that is that there are no elephants there anymore, obviously, and lots of cattle. The cattle take away the grass layer, and then these trees come up, and you need elephants to keep them under control, or you have to mechanically clear them. And what's interesting is that they're quite, I mean, there are a few of them around here, but they're not very common, and that's because the elephants, as you can see, keep them under control. She looks like quite an old cow. If you look at her temples, they're sunken. You see that? Just sort of, yeah, there. And I'm just trying to sort of check the general condition of these elephants. I think they look all right. But for me, during the drought, during the earlier drought this year, in the summertime, it was the elephants that started to wear it the worst. Now she's turned. Yeah, her hips don't look too bad. They're the things that are going to stick out the first if she gets skinny. Now she looks alright. I think she's just quite old. Let me move a little bit forward because you'll see the massive stick that the one at the back there started to eat. There we go. That's it there. Incredible. I mean, that is a very large piece of wood. I'd say probably weighs in the region of, I don't know, maybe 15 kilograms, which is about 55 pounds. Stunning. It's so quiet. There are probably about 6 or 7 of them here, maybe 8. And they're all just sort of feeding quietly. No noise about what they're doing at all, no fuss. Just going about the business of trying desperately to find sufficient to eat. Which, if you're an elephant, is not easy. A big bull, 300 kilograms or so of food. Apparently Jamie has got better elephants than I do, so let's go across to her.
Not better elephants. Definitely not better elephants. just different elephants. And this particular individual I really wanted to show you because she's interesting, and it goes back to what we were talking about this morning with my favorite elephant, the one with the snared trunk, and her little family, because this elephant cow, she's young and she's got about half a trunk. She's only got half a trunk. There she goes. Have a look there. Look at that. Much, much shorter than our snared trunk elephant. Missing its sort of much more flexible, dexterous tip that the other elephants have. Now, it is a windy day and she is a little bit nervous, so I'm not going to try and reposition to get you a better view. Most of you will know by now that when it's windy, our animals tend to be slightly more unsettled, slightly more on edge. And I don't want to make that any worse. So we just happened to bump into these elephants while we were on the way to our lions. But I did want to show you, and I was hoping we might be able to have a look at the way that she feeds. Because, of course, she can't really use that trunk to twist and strip leaves off. She'll have to do something similar to our shorter-trunked elephant, which is pull the food into her mouth and then bite directly from the trees. Aim, girl. And we'll never know how an injury like was caused. Most likely, it was caused by a wire snare that she may have encountered along a fence line somewhere in the reserve. It won't have been in the Sabi Sand, because that is regularly patrolled for such things. But because this whole area is open to the Kruger National Park and the surrounding reserves, she could have picked up a snare anyway, or anywhere. It's not a fresh injury, it's an old injury. It could also be crocodile. It does occasionally happen that eddies get, their trunks get grabbed by a crocodile when they go to drink. Hey guys, these two are also really cute. Hello, little ones. Two little mischievous boys must be. And as the two cousins headbutt each other and become involved in a push and a shove game. Hello, Mia, who is 4 years old. It's lovely to have you on our safari, and I hope you're imagining that you're out here in the middle of the African bush with us. Mia wants to know how many elephants you have in one herd. Oh, look at them pushing each other. So, Mia, it depends on the elephants themselves. So there might be just 3 or 4, even up to 15 or 16. But usually you're looking at somewhere around 10 to 15 elephants in a herd. And you two little boys, you are, look at that, double trouble. Are you naughty? Yes. Oh, I said two little boys. There's a little girl at the back. Hi, big boy. Don't you be naughty. Hello. Hello. Nope. Not doing anything. Just sitting here. You causing chaos with the rest of the elephants, not me. Look how they're trying to run away from you. Have you been harassing them all day? Yes, you have. You have been harassing them all day. Now, generally, what you get is you get these breeding herds of a couple of elephants, whether it's, as we were answering Mia's question, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20. And very often you'll get big males following behind them, looking for females in estrus, and also I sometimes think looking for a little bit of company as well. Remembering a time when they were part of a herd, I think they quite enjoy going up and just spending a little bit of time with the rest of the elephants. And so much for getting to those lions, we found ourselves with an elephant roadblock. Not that that bothers me in the slightest. Spending time with them is always special. And if I could, I would spend hours with them. And you? Oh, you're scary. Very scary. I will go, but you are in my way. Yes, big girl. I get it, I get it. I will go, I promise. I'm not going to hurt you or your family. So usually when the little males do that, it's very funny. They are being playful and pushing their limits a bit. When females do it, it is a sign that they are upset in it. In fact, that female clearly wants us to try and move on. She didn't feel 100% comfortable with us. Let's move on. We'll try and get past our elephants to the lions. In the meantime, James is on a roll with his bird species. Let's go and see which one he's found for you now.
Look at that, everybody. It's a little pearl-spotted owl. And it's hanging on for dear life there. What I want you to notice there is A, that it's a diurnal owl normally or often, and B, just look at its feet. Look at its amazing feet there. And two, it's called zygodactyl feet, 2 claws front and 2 claws back. There it is. I can see it there. It's just behind us under on the, can you see it there? Now I'm going to try and call it, because I keep trying this, and the Juma owls don't generally speak the dialect that I speak. Oops. Come on, call, bird. There we go. Hooray! There are 2 of them. There are 2 of them here. There are 2 of them here. I don't know what the other one is. They're now very cross and very confused. They're such angry looking little things. Isn't that amazing? They are tiny, everyone. That bird is no more than 6 inches long, maybe. Tiny little owl. There it goes. We can hear the other one, but I can't see it. It's in the tree behind us. Or the same tree, maybe. Elephants calling all around us. Hello, Olive and Emma, both aged just 5 years old. Here comes an elephant, everyone, up the road. You say, do the animals understand what we say to them? No, Olive and Emma, not really. I mean, that bird is calling because I've made a relatively decent sound that sounds a little bit like another owl. I don't think they think well, they might sort of think I'm an owl, but they don't know what I'm saying. And the reason they make that call is because they're saying to all the other owls, stay out, this is my area, this is where I live, don't come in here. So I guess, yes, to that extent, I suppose they do understand what I'm saying. But if I speak English or any human language to something like an elephant, they don't understand, no. Okay, let's go. The reason we moved from the elephants was that we thought we'd get a better view going around here. So I think we're going to do that. There was one herd calling there, and one herd calling, or I think that other one that just walked across here was sort of communicating with those ones. And Olive and Emma, elephants can make lots of different sounds, most of which we as human beings are unable to understand. And they normally make loud grumbling sounds. There's one there. Now she's watching us quite carefully. And so although we cannot speak their language, what we can do is read their body language. Now, Olive and Emma, you know when your mum and dad are cross with you, you know from the look on their face, or from perhaps how tense they are, how they look like they're angry. Well, we can tell that with elephants as well. And if you look at that elephant, she's got her head up, and she's got her ears a little bit out. They're not relaxed, they're not flapping up and down, fanning the air. And so she's just a little bit nervous of us. There's some more just in front there. Let's go around and have a look. They're talking to each other, going, oh. Mr. McNamara, I think, is the name that we're getting through. You want to know if the elephants have a small, large range in the reserve. A very large range. They move extensively. Sometimes they're here for weeks and then we don't see them for quite some time. And I'm not sure exactly what the size of the home range would be. The bull's larger than the cows and their breeding herds, but I'd say, I mean, I know of bulls that have walked sort of at least 100 kilometers or sort of live within a 100-kilometer radius of one point. So that's a pretty enormous home range. They're not territorial at all. And so it does kind of depend on how much there is to eat and how much there is to drink as to how far they move. Now let's just ease our way around here. They're much more easy to see here. Hello Liz, nice question from you about tannins. You say, how come we as humans can digest them but animals can't? Is it a different type of tannin? Liz, you made mention of grapes, so I'm assuming you kind of mean the sort of bitter taste that you get in red grape skins and certainly in wine. Liz, how it works is that I'm sure there are different kinds of tannins. I'm not sure the ins and outs of the different kinds, but yes, I imagine tannin is rather a class of chemicals than it is one specific chemical. And yes, you will absolutely be able to digest some, but not a lot. We don't eat tannins extensively. A nice example is black tea, for example, which contains extensive tannins. And if you have got a stomach bug, then you can take some black tea and that will calm the stomach often. And the reason it calms the stomach is that I think it kind of almost paralyzes it. And it's the same thing with the animals. They can eat a little bit of tannin, but after a while it poisons them. And I know that there's in drought years, especially in the sort of Mopani regions, the kudu will eat Mopani leaves, which are very full in tannins, and that can actually kill them. It doesn't so much poison them as it does stop up the gut. It stops the gut moving, and that eventually kills them. So they can digest a little bit of it in the same way that we can, but we can't have a huge amount of tannin without it hurting us as well. It's the reason we can't eat half of these leaves in the same way that the animals can. Let me just move a little bit further forward. We'll try and get a better view. There's a nice little one in here. Very slowly. There's a tiny little one in here. Now what's interesting is despite the fact that there's a strong wind blowing, the elephants are pretty relaxed, and often when it's windy they aren't relaxed and they don't like the wind. But I think because it's not a sort of stormy kind of a wind, there's no cloud up above, light is clear, I think they probably feel a little bit more relaxed. Okay, I'm going to sit here with these elephants for a bit longer. Jamie Patterson has managed to find herself in the company of the gangsters of the wild.
Yes. These three are definitely the gangsters of the bush. Taxit has just told me that I have a giant stick sticking out of the front of my vehicle that he's worried has gone through the radiator, which is not a pleasant thought. Okay, copy that, thank you. Definitely isn't what we want for our day, but let's not get distracted from the cuteness that is in front of us. Now go to what you've got. Did you find yourself a stick? Oh, fearsome sharp teeth and claws. For our sensitive viewers, actually for all of our viewers, just a brief warning if these cubs do get up or if Mom does move. One of them is quite badly injured on the back leg, on its back leg. It's limping. I'm not 100% sure if it's an injury to the leg itself or if it is in fact a broken pelvis or something similar. The little cub doesn't look very stable when it walks, so it is quite a bad injury. I have seen lion cubs recover from far worse. But just a warning to you all, don't get a shock when their cubs do get up and move, and they're probably going to get up and follow their mom. We've actually had a really nice surprise here, because it's not just a male that has come and joined the group, but actually another lioness as well. So we've got 3 lionesses and then these 3 utterly adorable little bundles of fluff. Brent's delectable little monsters, or fuzzy monsters, or whatever else that Brent happens to describe them as. Hello, you. The Nkuhumas seem to be going from strength to strength at the moment, from 5 adult females to now 5 adult females and 8 cubs, which brings them up to a grand total of 13 lions, unless my maths is wrong. No, that is right, it was 13 lions. And Elu, you want to know, well, how big can a lion pride get before it splits off into different directions? Well, there's a couple of famous, very, very large prides that actually made up of close to 40 odd lions. For example, it's okay, little ones, watching, keeping themselves entertained. For example, the pride of lions that is found around the Lubombo Mountains in the Kruger National Park, that is made up, it's called the Mountain Pride. Yes, it's the Mountain Pride. And as I said, there are 40 lions in that particular group, but very often split up into smaller sections, into smaller different groups of lions, because can you imagine what kind of amount of food? We actually spoke about it this morning, how much food you need to feed 40 lions. If our buffalo that we saw killed on Saturday night was finished by Monday afternoon, now that's about a 36-hour period, maybe an 850 kilogram buffalo shared between, let's say, 8 lions, 2 males, 5 females, and then cubs. I'm squishing all the cubs together into 1 lion, so let's say 850 odd kilograms divided by, what did I say, 8 lions, gives you roughly just over 110 kilograms each that they ate in the period of 2 days. Okay, slight exaggeration. Let's take it down to 80. So they each ate close to 100 kilograms of meat in 2 days. Just to give you an idea of how much food a lion can actually consume. That's huge. Okay, and maybe taking down the bones, a little bit under 100 kilograms. Okay, but maybe these little mouths to feed didn't consume quite so much meat. But still, big lion prides like that, they're famous for taking down giraffe, even elephant in certain areas, but generally the larger prey species. But that sort of number is unsustainable. And generally you'll find that the average sits around maybe between 8 to 15 in a pride. And they are cute, aren't they? I mean, since we first saw them all lined up on Inyala Road North, that was with Brian as well. Yes, Brian. It was Brian and myself again. When we first saw these 3 little cubs, they have grown exponentially, but they're still utterly adorable. And you know, don't tell James. Definitely don't tell James, but I think he's right. I think that lion cubs, and I'm going to get myself into trouble, I think that lion cubs might actually be cuter than leopard cubs. But then it doesn't have to be a competition, because baby elephants are also adorable. Lion cubs are just very, very active. Even when it comes to just munching on a branch that this one has managed to grab. Now, just to give you a sense of scale, because it's very difficult when looking through the eyes of the camera, Mark wants to know how tall they would stand at the shoulder. Now, I'm assuming that we're talking about the cubs here, although we can go on to talk about the adult lions as well. Mark, these little guys are about the same height as your average domestic house cat, possibly even a little bit shorter. If I were to go and walk next to them, the tops of their head would probably come close to my knee, and their shoulders would be somewhere mid-calf. Just to give you a sense of scale, I'm 5'7". They'd be roughly around there. They're definitely heavier than house cats and definitely stronger, much, much bulkier. The adult lions, on the other hand, would come up to past my hip for shoulder height. They're huge. They really are enormous. You don't get a sense of scale until you are right up next to them or when they're right next to the vehicle. They truly are absolutely enormous animals. And each of them weighs more than an adult or average adult man. And they look very harmless right now with their paws in the air, having the odd chest scratch every now and again. But they do give us constant reminders that they are fearsome predators. And champion sleepers. Truly the champion sleepers of the bush. If they could go to Rio to compete in sleeping Olympics, they would. And thank you for all of you who are sending through your screenshots. I mentioned this the other day, and I really truly meant it, because even though I've got Brent's camera with me at the moment, I keep forgetting that I do, and I'm too distracted to take pictures. And what your screenshots do for us and for you is they will keep these memories forever after. We will always remember the time that we spent. Oh, little one. It's okay. This is what I meant. Can move the leg. That's a good sign. Even if it's not putting weight on the leg, it is touching the ground with it, because this morning it didn't look as though it could move that leg at all, which made me think broken hip. Oh, shame, little one. Almost there. Nearly there. Nearly made it to Mom. And just to speak a little bit about this cub, it doesn't mean that this cub is going to die. It's got the support of one very protective mother and an entire pride to provide it with food, and of course loving siblings to keep it company. I have seen a lion cub recover from a broken leg before. They're much, much more resilient than we are as human beings, so what would be death for us, it might just for them, they just need a little bit of time in order to heal. Unfortunately, I know we got asked this question this morning, there is nothing we can do. It's really very sad, but it is nature taking its course. It is a natural injury. The argument against that, which one of our viewers put forward, which is a valid point. Where's that little one? Those are tourists. You're going to see lots of them in your life. And you can't hunt the vehicle. The argument that was put forward was, well, surely if these animals are endangered throughout the world, should we not intervene in this particular instance? And the answer is no, because they're not endangered here. And an overpopulation of lions is also an incredibly damaging thing to an environment. They're a keystone species, like an elephant is a keystone species. Overpopulation of lions means a reduction in the numbers of leopards and wild dogs. Obviously, guys, we do seem to be having a minor problem with our signal. Pixelation, apparently. So you're seeing the cubs in pixels. And every now and again, bringing you a live safari from the center of the African bush proves to be somewhat complicated. And things go a little bit wrong. But we are aware of it. Thank you for those of you who let us know. We are aware of it. We are working on it. Oh, it seems to be okay now. And the cubs seem to know. They do seem to know that their sibling is injured. They're much more gentle with it than they are with each other. I say that. Perhaps I spoke a little bit too soon. No, it is gentle. I think it's the little male. Very gently practicing their throat hold. The skills that they will need when they are fierce hunters and killers. For now, a sibling will do as good practice. We had some disagreement about lion cubs being the cutest animal. Donna said sorry, but she thinks that elephant are the cutest baby animals. Let's go over to James to see if he can prove you right.
Donna, you say that you think that elephant babies are the cutest. Well, you know, there has been a lot of debate. Is it leopard cubs? Is it lion cubs? Is it elephant calves? They're all just rather too magnificent, aren't they? I'm going to go with lion cubs. They've been my cutest for some time. They lose that for me quite quickly, whereas leopards remain fascinating. Well, lions are fascinating always, but they lose their endearing qualities, I feel, fairly soon. Elephants, rather like leopards, maintain their endearing natures. And you might just be able to hear the crunching of trees in the background. Definitely quite a lot in the way of tree breakage going on. And they're sort of feeding towards Treehouse Dam. I don't think they're going to go and drink there. There's really not much to drink at all. I will move forward and try and get a better view, everyone. I just can't, I don't want to frighten this little one off the road. Hello, Aaron in Florida, as opposed to Aaron in New Zealand. You want to know if elephants have ever given birth to twins? Yes, they have. It has been recorded. It is unusual. I'm beginning to suspect that it might be more common than we think it is, because we do relatively often see cows with sort of two similarly aged calves. But that said, I'm actually going to take back what I just said. I don't think it is common, and I think often we mistake animal calves as twins because they like to play with each other. And we've just watched a cow here with two, well, obviously not the same age calves, but similarly aged calves, and they're spending time around each other and around the female. And I think because of that, and because of the fact that females will also adopt calves that lose their mothers, and because they will look after everyone in the herd, I think we often mistake similarly aged elephants following one cow for twins. Now this elephant is tuskless here, and okay, we're getting quite nice and close now. I'm just going to stop here and let her walk across the road. Don't want to get in her way. There's a very, very sweet little thing there. Trying to use his little trunk. Isn't that sweet? Valeria, you make an excellent point. You say whatever baby we happen to be looking at currently is the cutest. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely bang on there. And quite they really are making sort of short work of these, well, that's a zebra wood that that little one's eating, but they're making short work of the baboon's tails there on the ground. And very relaxed around us. We still watch the behavior all the time, making sure that we're reading the behavior correctly. We're not taking chances. We're not threatening them. And it's so important, it's so crucially important, especially here in the Sabi Sand, where elephants do tend to be very relaxed around us. But that does give rise to what we call Sabi Sand's complacency syndrome, where we just kind of drive up to a herd of elephants and sit down and chat and mouth off, and sometimes the elephants give us signs that they're not comfortable and they'd like us to move off, and it's important that we recognize those and act on them. Most peaceful to be around here. I don't really want to go any further forward, just simply because they're very close to the road, and I think she's going to try and cross the road. I don't want to get in her way. You can see the light still very harsh, just starting to turn slightly gold now. I think if we spend a bit of time with these elephants, we'll get some beautiful views of them as the sun starts to set. Sneak slightly forward. Now ideally, of course, you'd not want an electric vehicle, so you can just put your foot gently on the accelerator and move slowly forward. But unfortunately we have to start a great big petrol engine here. There you go, we're nice and close to her now. She's very relaxed, which of course is how we want to maintain it. And the one, they're just basically eating the Strychnos madagascarensis, or the black monkey orange, and also the baboon's tail, flushed special green after that 1 to 2 inches of rain that we had about a week ago. Then what I'm going to do, Handa, if you don't mind, down in the drainage line here, there's an elephant, there are 2 of them actually, paying rather close attention to that tree, which I'm going to try and identify. Oh, it's a Manilkara mochisa, or a low-felt milkberry. And let me just, I'm going to sneak slightly forward, everyone. And they're 2, there's one on the bank and one there underneath where you can see it. Oh dear, paying rather too close attention to that tree. And one of them making loud groaning noises the other side there. Isn't that nice? It's amazing. Alright. We're going to stay with these elephants, and just before we hand you back to the lion cubs, just have a quick look here, Zander. This cow is completely relaxed with us. She's just feeding. She's only about 3 meters from the vehicle. It's about 10 feet. Okay, let's go back to those tiny, wonderful little lion cubs.
Back once again with our little lion cubs, as they wander about and generally get on with their afternoon, starting, as the day gets a bit cooler, to become a bit more active. Hello. We see you. You're very, very good at hiding, but we've spotted you. The game is up. You're sneaking up on the other lion cubs. No problem. And it's so much fun watching them, even at this very, very young age. The instincts to practice their hunting skills and the techniques that we see the adults use when they stalk and catch their prey. You see immediately in the cubs' behavior at just the tender age of a couple of months. They might be young and innocent, but at the same time, their instincts are all there, and it's just a matter of practicing and working on that coordination and the strength, and of course lots and lots of growing to do. Because at the moment that lion cub is not all that scary. You see how gentle they are with the younger one, and it really does just go to demonstrate the power of the bond between different lions that is reinforced. If you think these triplets were born together, spent those initial crucial few weeks all together in a den site. Oh, little one. There we go. Settling down a bit closer to Mom. The other two, a lot more boisterous, and whilst their sibling is out of action for now, they have each other to torment and play with. And of course a whole pride full of aunts, tolerant aunts, to keep themselves entertained. Exercising those jaw muscles and at the same time giving those needle teeth something to do. I agree, by the way, that baby elephants are the cutest animal. Well, almost. I think actually baby rhino to me are the cutest animal in the bush. But spending time with these lion cubs, as much time as we have, I don't think I've ever spent as much time with lion cubs as I have in such a short space of time over the last few weeks. And I have a whole new appreciation for them and their entertainment value. Constantly busy with something. And constantly needing entertaining as well. Looking across very bravely at where the male is fast asleep, and at some point we will reposition to get a view of him. I can see him from where I am, but he is completely flat and fast asleep. Have a look over there. There you go. See him over there? There is our male lion, looking round-bellied and exhausted, just an ear twitching, his head on the left and his rest of his body running along the center of your screen. We're not far from him at all, just goes to show how well a lion's... Oh, hello. Morning. Good night. Back to sleep again. But the cubs have occasionally been looking across at this male in a vague sense of curiosity, like perhaps it might be quite fun to go and see what that male lion's up to. I doubt he'll be much fun. Oh, we're going to get a pounce here. Oh, no, maybe not. And a lovely question coming through from Rochelle, just talking about the lion cubs and their playful nature. Rochelle wanted to know whether or not the lion cubs ever stop practicing their hunting skills, or if we see adult lions playing together. And we see the Nkuhumas, Rochelle, we see the Nkuhumas do it all the time. I say all the time. Maybe about every fifth time that we see them, they're playing with each other, keeping each other entertained, pouncing, especially with the young female. I've noticed it particularly with the young female and amber eyes, although they all do it. Even when the lionesses were heavily pregnant, one of them would dash ahead and go and hide behind a bush and then ambush one of her sisters or her aunt or mom. just like our little cubs do. Hi. I feel as though I'm under close scrutiny with a burning curiosity from two little lion cubs. Rochelle, yes, they do carry on practicing throughout their lives, but playing as well. It's not just practicing, it's playfulness, and it reinforces the bonds between the members of the group. You don't see males do it as often, although male lions are very, very affectionate with each other. So lots of head rubbing, and a constant affirmation of their bond whenever they see each other. You grouchy little one. I'm just going to go forward a little bit. Right, hold on. I think if I start my engine now, they're going to get a bit of a fright. Just hold on. Let's just see where they settle first. And then we'll decide where to go. One of them's got an ear. Hello. It's okay. See? The big, loud, scary noise is just going forward a little bit. Here we go. Here we go. Slowly but surely, they're becoming more and more used to the presence of our vehicles around them. While we enjoy lion cub cuddles, James's elephants have come right up close to him. Let's head back across onto Wendy. Rusty.
We have been having the most wonderful experience here, everybody. This tuskless cow came within a foot of the vehicle. She just gave us a little look and then she carried on to where she is now. This is her calf just behind us over there. And wow. Zandra and I have been sitting here in awe. He is grinning from cheek to cheek behind me here. It's just been so very special to spend this time with them. Amazing that they haven't reacted to us negatively in the slightest. Then over here, the others, youngsters, probably young bulls, where they've been eating that low-felt milkberry, they seem to be now thinking about coming up the bank. And again, I will point out to you that although we tend to think of elephants as being fairly lumbering and not particularly agile, it's not easy. At least it is easy for them to come up a bank that is, well, I mean, not that easy for us to go down or up. So they really are much more agile than we think they are. In fact, there are a whole lot. There's a big cow coming down the bank now. We're just going to sit quietly here. And I'm sure some of you must be thinking, well, we know what would may move forward. How would I know if we should get out of the way or not? Well, we are watching their behavior very carefully. If they were to open their ears out, I'd watch specifically this big cow who is not in your picture yet. You'll just see her there, just in the far left-hand corner of your screen. They're moving behind the one full frame. She's large. She's obviously she's a figure of authority within the herd. So were she to lift her ears out towards us as if to say, you know, I'm not that comfortable with you, I'd probably be tempted to just move a little bit out of the middle of the herd, because we really are right in the middle of it now, which is a tremendous privilege. I mean, I really do have to pinch myself every so often to just make sure that it really is true that I have this opportunity to spend this kind of time with some of the most iconic animals the world has ever known and call that my job. Hello, Andrea in Los Angeles, sorry. You want to know if females live longer than males, elephant-wise? No, not obviously so. Normally in this area 55 to 60 years probably. You might find that they live slightly longer. I've never read that before. I've got a field guide here, a new field guide that's quite good, so I'm just going to quickly check in that. But I'm pretty sure that they don't, you know. I'm pretty sure that they live the same length of time. And the limiting factor, of course, is their teeth. Their teeth wear out, and then eventually they'll starve to death. Not a very nice way to go, but, you know, just how it goes, I guess. And in an area like this, and I have said this before, of course, but in an area like this, where they do have to eat fairly hard material, not a lot in the way of grass for them to eat, clearly, and that's simply because, well, it's because we've had this big drought, and that does grind their teeth down slightly more quickly than it might in the Okavango, for example. Okay, I'm not going anywhere from here. We're going to wait for these elephants to pop up out of the drainage system. While we do that, let's go and see what the little lions are doing.
Little lions are thoroughly occupied with each other at the moment, and I am thoroughly occupied with Brent's camera right now, so you're going to get the clicking every now and again as I take a picture. I hardly ever do this, I don't feel too bad, and I am learning. I did some really nice pictures of Karula's cubs, none of which were in focus the last time I took Brent's camera, until Jean-Andre pointed out how one uses the manual focus and not the automatic focus, which made a huge amount of difference. Okay, I'll stop now. And concentrate on the fact that the little cub has got mom's tail right now, or aunt's tail. I'm not quite sure whose tail they've got there. And that is the best of all games, and a stick might be quite a lot of fun. And another lion cub might be fun, but an adult's tail, now that is the toy that little lion cubs dream of. Oh, it's gone. Where'd it go? Where'd it go, guys? Where'd it vanish to? Find it. Catch it. Get it. It moves. It's got a black furry tip. Bonks them on the head. It's heavy. It's just the best game in the world. Get it. Get it. Hey, well done. Got it. You can really see how training like that would be really very good for the coordination of the little cubs. Get it. Catch it. Come on. There you go. Oops. The lioness is unbelievably tolerant of the antics of the cubs. Your fierce baby teeth. Aren't you terrifying? So lovely to see the Nkuhuma pride booming in the way that it is. And these are really pretty lion cubs, and they are really in very good condition. I think we've got 2 males in this combination of triplets. I think we've got 2 males and a female. It's hard to tell at this point unless you get a really good up-close and personal view underneath their tails. Andrew would like to know what age the males start to develop their manes. Andrew, by 6 to 8 months, it will start to become clear that the male cubs have fluffier. This is definitely one of the moms, probably their mom actually. She's got suckle marks as well, not as prominent. Oh! Sorry, Andra. Though, even in their first early months of life, the males start to become a little bit fluffier, a little bit shaggier around the face. Now, they only develop a full mane, a proper full mane, at between 5.5, 6 years old, depending on where they are, of course. So lion manes develop at different times, depending on whether it is closer towards the equator and in eastern Africa, or whether you're talking, oh, too much for one lion to take. She's had it. Irritated flick of her tail. Not to be deterred. Nope. This is just too good a game. Oh, she's getting cross. And of course, the angrier she gets, the more she thrashes her tail, and the more she thrashes her tail, the more fun the game is. Oh, but for the moment, distraction comes in the form of a sibling. As you can hear, the wind is truly howling. I think we're going to wake up tomorrow morning a bit cloudy and cold. Charlotte did warn us. Charlotte is one of our viewers in Port Elizabeth. She did warn us that something unpleasant was on its way towards us. Seems as though Charlotte was absolutely correct. Got your head. And Sarah, welcome back. Sarah is one of our 18-year-old viewers now. Sarah's been watching for many months, and she's actually been studying the different lions of the area, and she's just completed her second paper on the Birmingham boys and is waiting for the marks to come back. So Sarah, welcome back as always. It's lovely to have you on board. She raises a very valid point. Why do lions have such a bad reputation for being so incredibly lazy, since they are more active at night, and leopards do sleep a lot during the day as well? That's an entirely valid point. Lions sleep a lot, and they sleep a lot for a good reason, because especially in the summer months they overheat, so they can't be active during the day. Or their bodies will get too hot, and their bodies are really specifically geared towards not being able to raise much more than a degree or two in terms of core body temperature. And they have to sleep during the summer months, and if they've got full bellies of buffalo, well, what's the point in expending energy? So then they do sleep 22 odd hours a day. Sarah, I would say that a lion sleeps more than a leopard. Just. But it is touch and go, and it does depend on the circumstances behind it. So we often see leopards moving about in the middle of the day where you might not otherwise see a lion moving around. Let's reposition. Let's go on the other side. Go and switch things up a little bit. But Sarah's absolutely right. You know, a lion is not lazy. A lion may sleep a lot in terms of percentage of its life, but it's not a lazy animal. The Birmingham boys, when they walk and when they patrol, yes, he's fast asleep right now, and most of the time when we see them, they're fast asleep, but the Birmingham boys, when they do have to go and patrol, they will walk from Manyaleti to Buffelshoek, through Buffelshoek to Torchwood and into Mala Mala. So, you know, they do a tremendous amount of exercise when they need to. I'm going to reposition, but while we do, let's go back to James and a much bigger creature.
I haven't moved, everyone. Well, we've moved very slightly forward, just because the light is now starting to go rather gold and delicious, and the elephants are coming out of the drainage line. Well, they're kind of feeding along it towards Treehouse Dam, but they're not doing a great deal, and it's just so very peaceful to be around them, so I think we'll just stay around where we are, if that's okay with you. I thankfully have not pulled down my low-felt milkberry tree just yet. I might sneak a little bit forward. Can you see that one, Zander, or should I go forward a bit? Go forward a little. Come back into this position. In fact, let me do this rather. Is that any good for you? Dispatch Griffin, you say, do we ever get desensitized to the animals, or was it always a thrill? You know, I'd love to say to you that no, it's always like the first time, every single time. Of course it isn't. But it is a constant source of amazement. And I think that, you know, the day dispatch griffin that you are in an area like this and you think, you know, that's nice, but it's not that amazing, it's then time to move on. To be this close to these elephants, to have spent such time with them, is, I mean, you have a slightly different experience every time you do this sort of thing. And so for me, yes, it's not quite the same as the first time, but it's different every time. And absolutely, we still get a tremendous thrill, especially with unusual things like those lion cubs or the leopard cubs we've been looking at, or the fact that we've been able to get into this herd of elephants. And while I'm not that amazed that we're in the middle of it, I am amazed at the new things I'm seeing, the closeness of these youngsters, exactly what they're eating, how their trunks move, which I wouldn't have noticed the first time I looked at them. I would have just been in awe. Thunder, they're breaking my tree there. I'm not happy with that at all. You may just be able to hear them snapping the branches off the low-felt milkberry. The other sound that is quite obvious around here is the sound of flatulence, the elephants letting fly, as it were. Hello, R. Beard. You're wondering about whether or not these elephants go places they wouldn't normally because of the drought. Are they going sort of onto steeper areas and down drainage lines and slopes where they wouldn't normally? Yes, I suppose that's probably true. They probably would go to easier spots than this drainage line in the summertime. But that said, I mean, they're not risking their lives at all here. It's not like they're sort of gripping on the edge of a cliff face, precariously perched and about to fall to their deaths. So yes, perhaps they would try and get at trees that they wouldn't normally, but not in a way that endangers them at all. Still, those baboons' tails are taking an absolute hammering. And you might just be able to hear the elephants going. Hello, Faunawa. Apparently you are a new viewer, which is wonderful to hear from you. Thank you very much for giving us of your time, and mostly for sending us through a question. You say, are the elephant numbers increasing now? Faunawa, hello to you. Wonderful to have you with us. It depends where you are. In the Kruger National Park, yes, absolutely, they are increasing. We think probably between 15 and 17,000 elephants, I think. I don't know that there's been an accurate census done in the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. That's the 8.5 million acres, part of which we are. Worldwide, so continent-wide, is the African bush elephant increasing? No, it's probably decreasing. Certainly in East Africa there's a large poaching problem. The Kruger has managed to maintain a pretty good control on poaching of elephants, but certainly in East Africa, especially Tanzania, there has been a bit of an issue. Corruption, a massive problem there, so there seems to be quite a lot of fairly high up government collusion in much of the poaching ring, and so that's quite difficult to deal with. But over here, where we are, they're unharassed and their numbers seem to be growing quite nicely. I'm just going to go a little bit forward, turn around, then come back this way, I think. Herd of elephants feeding quietly into the sunset, and we'll go in search of, well, something else, I guess. All right, while we turn around, I'll see if there's another nice view. But while let's actually play kitties.
Well, I think James and myself have found ourselves in spots that we are thoroughly contented to keep for the duration of the afternoon. Him with his elephants and myself with these lovely lions that have been keeping us entertained throughout the afternoon. Of course, for us in particular, with these lion cubs, once it gets dark, we will no longer be able to spend time with them, just because we cannot put a spotlight or lights on them. We take advantage of spending as much time as we possibly can before it starts to get dark. Luckily, the days are getting noticeably longer, and the light stays with us for just that little bit longer. Every now and then, one of them casts a longing glance in the direction of the male. I want to go and investigate. Oh, you know, the stick that's next to it. Okay, fair enough. I thought it was looking at the male. It was looking... No, it is looking at the male. It does want to go and investigate, but at the same time, not quite brave enough just yet. It's fine when they're around a kill, but that's very far away from Mom. Time for a quick clean. They've still got their spots very, very clearly on their legs. When a lion cub is born, it is born spotty. One of the things that I've been trying to do, apart from playing with Brent's camera and teaching myself to take lovely photographs, because Brent of course takes lovely photographs, I'm hoping I might learn a little bit from his skill. The other thing I'm doing is taking pictures haphazardly of whisker spot patterns while I still can, while we can still tell the cubs apart from each other. And that goes to answer Lynn's question, which is yes, absolutely, while our cubs teethe on a tree branch, yes, absolutely, we will be able to tell the difference between them when they get older, when they leave the pride. Just one more picture. Okay, I'll stop. So Lynn, yes they can. Yes, we will be able to, and that will be through whisker spot patterns. So whilst a lion gains and loses scars throughout its life, its nose changes colour, the condition of its teeth will change as it ages. Whilst all of those things change, the shape of the whisker spot pattern is unique. It's as unique as a fingerprint is to a human being. And they are born with that. So that will change. That will never change throughout their lives. So if we have a close-up view, and that's one of the reasons why we always encourage you all to keep taking screenshots, is if we have whisker spot patterns to compare it to. Yes, I think you got that stick. You killed that stick. But now you've got a thorn in your bottom, don't you? Oh no. That's tough for a little lion cub. And then what we'll be able to do, Lynn, is years down the line when they turn up, I don't know, wherever they happen to turn up. Pafuri, for all we know, but when which is in the Northern Kruger, by the way. When they turn up there and people put photographs up of them, we'll be able to turn around and say, well, that was the Nkuhuma cubs, and we watched them barrel about when they were only a couple of weeks and then a couple of months old. These are the ones that are nearly 3 months old now. Oh, goodness. Some poor long-suffering female with cubs jumping over her head when she's trying to have a nap. Lion cubs are hard work. And busy. Busy, busy, busy. Like toddlers kind of busy. Aww. And Angelo, in Polokwane, absolutely there is a reason that we've got this cubulation, a cub explosion. I don't know what word I was going for there, but that didn't work out as I intended it to. There is absolutely a reason for all of these cubs, and the reason is the Birmingham boys and the takeover and the timing of the takeover. And I'm going to explain what I mean in a moment. Let me just answer Ephraim, who wants to come and join us. Standing by. It's affirmative, just myself. You're welcome to join. Gobi, I'll see you now. So, Angelo, a year ago, the Birmingham boys came in and they carried out what's known as a pride takeover. And during those pride takeovers, or a territorial takeover, when they kick out the current dominant males, invariably the male lions will kill any cubs that stand in the way of raising their own offspring or producing their own offspring. So they don't waste time invested in helping other male lions' offspring survive. So they kill all of the cubs, and that immediately brings, and in fact, even if the lioness hasn't had cubs, you'll find that almost all of them go into a period of false estrus. And that's nature's very clever way of, first of all, placating the males, calming them down a little bit, let them think that they're getting what they want to. And at the same time, it makes sure that if perhaps, let's say, a coalition comes in and doesn't prove to be strong enough to dominate an area, then a lioness, if she went into true estrus, would fall pregnant straight away and then give birth and then have her cubs killed all over again. And a pregnancy for any mammal is a huge investment in terms of the body's resources. So rather than do that, all of the females in the area go into false estrus. They have a false estrus period, which usually, well, in this particular case, timed itself to around, as is often the case, what does it work out as? Around 8 months. Yeah, about 8 months that the estrus periods were false. Slightly earlier for the Styx females, they fell pregnant slightly earlier, and then the Nkuhumas followed on afterwards. Now that's why we've got this explosion of lion cubs. Leopard cubs, it's just timing. And it's worked out quite well, because all of the predators with this drought and with this dry season that we're having, that is a time of plenty for them. So for the wildebeest and the buffalo and the elephants and whatever else we happen to see, it's hard times for them. But for our predators, it means really truly easy pickings. Everything's concentrated around a waterhole. Everything has to go to some place to go and get water. So for our predators, this is a time of plenty. A drought for predators is a very good thing. And they are trying to boost up their numbers from the lions that they lost. And it's nature's way of replacing them. I don't know if you've ever heard the soldier, what's it called? Somebody help me out here. There's a name for this phenomenon. Whenever there is a large war in a country, and obviously at least historically, no longer the case, but historically, young men went off to war. That's what they did, and then they died as soldiers. And as soon as that's happened, afterwards, there is a birth of males. There's a skew in favor of the birth of baby boys. And nobody knows why that is, but it's clearly borne out in quite a lot of research. Love to know what the reason behind that is, but it does happen, and it's called, help me, it's called the soldier effect, or it's the something effect. I can't remember now. And it's something similar that happens. I think that is it. It's the returning soldier effect. And the same thing happens with animals, not with a gender skew, but with a population explosion after a dip in population. Oh, the milk bar is open. And the cubs are having an amazing time. Dinner time. Well, because all of the predators with this drought and with this dry season that we're having, that is a time of plenty for them. So for the wildebeest and the buffalo and the elephants and whatever else we happen to see, it's hard times for them. But for our predators, it means really truly easy pickings. Everything's concentrated around a waterhole. Everything has to go to some place to go and get water. So for our predators, this is a time of plenty. A drought for predators is a very good thing. And they are trying to boost up their numbers from the lions that they lost. And it's nature's way of replacing them. I don't know if you've ever heard the soldier, what's it called? Somebody help me out here. There's a name for this phenomenon. whenever there is a large war in a country, and obviously at least historically, no longer the case, but historically, young men went off to war. That's what they did, and then they died as soldiers. And as soon as that's happened, afterwards, there is a birth of males. There's a skew in favor of the birth of baby boys. And nobody knows why that is, but it's clearly borne out in quite a lot of research. Love to know what the reason behind that is, but it does happen, and it's called, help me, it's called the soldier effect, or it's the something effect. I can't remember now. And it's something similar that happens. I think that is it. It's the returning soldier effect. And the same thing happens with animals, not with a gender skew, but with a population explosion after a dip in population. Oh, the milk bar is open. And the cubs are having an amazing time. Dinner time. Beautiful, peaceful sighting. I spoke before this morning about the fact that even now, what day is it today? Wednesday. It is Wednesday, thank you. So we're now 4 or 5 days from when the lionesses brought down the buffalo. It's been at least 2 days since they last had a meal, or last ate. Already they're going to start to feel quite hungry, particularly for the nursing mothers that need to provide for their offspring. So while things start to settle down and become very peaceful out here, let's head across to James and find out what has intrigued him so off the vehicle and on the road.
Right, everybody, I'm standing here with the golden light of the setting sun illuminating my face, but something very strange has occurred. We seem to have found the hat of some form of an American naval officer from the USS Missouri. Something that looks like a battleship of sorts. I'm not au fait with the different kinds of battleships. I don't know whether that would be a frigate or a destroyer or a cruiser or what the difference would be. But this from the USS Missouri doesn't look like a particularly salubrious hat. Maybe from a, I don't know, maybe a cabin boy. I don't think it was from the captain. Although hard to imagine how a cabin boy would afford to come out here. Maybe the bosun or one of the officers. This will now become my hat, and I shall wear the hat of the USS Missouri with pride. If anybody can shed any light as to what the USS Missouri is, if it is in fact still afloat or if it was perhaps sunk during a previous conflict, do keep me posted. Astounding discovery. Now, I'm on this road. This is the Gari main road, of course, the southern boundary of Djuma, and I was hoping we might bump into Karula. Herbert has gone up and down this road many times today. He's found no sign of her other than her crossing down into Little Gari, which is to the south of us. So I don't think we're going to find her necessarily, but maybe Shadow will pop along here, so we'll drive along here and see if there isn't some kind of evidence of leopards. It is the most stunning afternoon, and like I say, there's just a sense of expectation about the place as a result of this wind and the haze and the slight smell of smoke in the air. I just love it. But otherwise, animal-wise, we haven't seen too much since we last saw you. Oh, I see my my microphone is sticking out like a sort of a pimple. I said to Jerry yesterday, she was complaining about my pimple, very validly of course, but she said, can't you hide it? So I mean, I'm trying to hide it. It was Jerry or Rebecca, but I said, I mean, what's the difference between it being there or on my face? But I mean, looking at the screen now, I can see that it looks like a skin blemish rather than a microphone. So let me try and move it. There we go, now it's invisible. And Kirsten says they've been discussing it in FC, which means I will be in trouble when I get home. We did see some nyala and a whole lot of Egyptian geese were shouting at each other, but that's about all. There we go. Thank you, Pam in Colorado. You say the USS Missouri is in fact a battleship. It's obviously not anywhere near where you are, Pam, given that you are nowhere near the sea. But there is a giant wind now. Hang on a second. Zander, there's a termite mound along this line of extremely ugly telegraph poles, but on that termite mound there is a discoloration which is either a cat or some bushes. It is in fact some bushes. What a pity. There we are, thank you. Sorry about that. We're just trying to fix some of the sound issues. How's that, Kirsten? Ah, good, well done. No cat on that termite mound there, I'm afraid. Just a scraggly bushel. And I say this all the time, but I just wish that we could transfer the smells of what we're getting out here through to you. Nothing really smells like August out here unless, at least other than August out here. And it's always, I don't know, I always just enjoy it very much. Difficult to describe. Now, we're going to head north fairly soon into the area where we think Shadow has been around. Nobody's seen her. People have spent very little time around her cub, and because she spent so much time on Hoffman's. So it really is it's a sadness to me actually that we haven't had more time with her and her youngster, but I'm sure we will have as time goes on. And Sandila, just to give you an update for those of you who are not following, was on apparently latest ping just on Arathusa to the south of the Simbambili border. If you are interested in following and you're wondering how we know, you can go across to his Facebook page, Sindile Male Leopard, or you can go across to and follow Gerrie Camacho. That's Gerrie. I forget how you spell Camacho, but you'll find it, and then he posts pictures of exactly where Sindile's collar has been pinging all over the place, and you'll be able to watch him there. Now, if you're a new viewer, you obviously don't know what I'm talking about. Sindile is well, he must be almost 2 by now, male leopard, who had to leave this area because he caught a rabid dog, and we were worried that he might get rabies, and he's went into quarantine for quite a while. He's come back, and it's just very interesting to watch his life. I'm now sticking out of my hat again. Not sure why it's so difficult today. It's deeply irritating. Right, we're going to have a quick look at this tree. Not because it's a particularly amazing tree, but because it is what we call semi-deciduous, and it's one of the last few bits of sort of green tree that we find around here. And it's a jackalberry tree or ebony, and it's semi-deciduous because it doesn't lose its leaves at the same time as other trees do, and it will eventually lose them very quickly and get them again within sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So it doesn't go through a dormant season, which if you live in a warm climate like this is a particularly clever strategy because it means that you avoid competition. Ooh, there's a bird. It's a crested barbet, just on the right hand side there. I don't know if you can see it there, Zander. It's flicking about there. Got him. Oh, there's some jackalberries actually on the tree, right next to where that crested barbet is sitting. We will try and find it as Zander. Let me go back a bit. Zander's got the handle of the camera is stuck. You'll there is a lovely crested barbet there. Can you see it? It's just on the right. It's now moving in. If you got him. Down a bit. No. Sorry everybody. Anyway, while you're looking that close to the tree, you might be able to see something in the way of the jackalberry fruits, which I'm sure will start to fall soon, and they are very delicious indeed. I think he's gone now. How are you doing? Good, good. Crested barbet, nothing too exciting. As you were. That was Shanae Wiles-Bailey, everybody, from Nkoro. Zander has now basically tied himself into a giant knot trying to find that thing. So let's go across to Jamie and I will try and rescue Zander from his camera.
Oh dearie me, it sounds as though Zander's got himself into a little bit of a pickle. In the meantime, we have left our lions for now. It is starting to get a little bit dark. By the way, I wasn't ignoring the male completely. It was just a really difficult position that he was in to get into without scaring the cubs away. So in order to get around there was a nice open patch close to where he was, but to get there, I would have had to push past the lion cubs, which of course isn't something that I wanted to do. It would definitely have scared them. That's why we didn't go any closer to that male lion. Even though he was there, he's not far away. Hopefully he will be there tomorrow for us to get a slightly better look at him. I don't know which particular Birmingham boy it was. I know it's one of the Birmingham boys, but it's not because I didn't want to go and see him. It's just we couldn't actually get there. And now I think, as it starts to get dark and a bit cooler, it might be time to go and visit Buffelshoek Dam and see what animals are deciding that they want to come and have a drink as evening approaches. I'm not sure if Brent mentioned it this morning, but he put a camera trap up around Gallagher Shortcut. Now, a camera trap, for those of you who are new, is a motion, it's exactly what its name suggests, and some of you will even have worked with them or put them up before in wherever you are from. And camera trap is a motion triggered camera, or it can be heat triggered, or whatever it happens to be set on. And Brent managed to get the most amazing photo of a porcupine, so they are here. We always see their tracks and we always see their quills, but I have yet to see one porcupine live, or I don't mean the porcupine, I mean presenting to you guys, or even just driving around throughout the Sabi Sand. I still haven't seen a porcupine here, but they're clearly here because Brent got a photo of one. And then he got the most fascinating video of a civet anal pasting on a tree that will probably be a regular marker. So that sort of information is really, really useful to know, because the civet came back every night on that path, as did a genet and the porcupine. And we know now which places to go and check. The next thing we need to do is get Brent to set up his clock properly on the camera trap so we know times. That would also help. And at some point, we've got to see a porcupine. And hey to Cameron, it's lovely to have you on board with us. Cameron wants to know how hot it is where we are at the moment. And Cameron, I'm just going to double check our special weather station and I will get back to you. Bear with me one moment. Okay, the weather station is not working. There we go. There we go, we've got the weather for you, Cameron. So Cameron, depending on where you're from, if you work in centigrade or Fahrenheit, it is 25 degrees centigrade, although to be honest, Cameron, I think that sounds a little bit warm to me, or 77 Fahrenheit. So even though we are in the middle of our winter, spring is in the air, and South Africa doesn't really have a spring so much as it goes from season and from winter to summer. So already our days are up to 30 degrees, which is around 86 Fahrenheit each afternoon. Oh, but there's something funny happening with our signal. Let's go back to James.
Here is my new hat, everybody. I hope you like it. I think it's quite dashing. I look like the captain of a naval ship now, which is, of course, well, that's sort of my station in life, really, captain of the rust bucket here. Have a look at the sunset. It's starting to go rather spectacular colour there in the dust and smoke and August wind. Isn't that nice? I mean, the picture you're looking at now is basically what we can see with our naked eye, so I think that's quite spectacular. I may even take a rank average picture of it. Zander, of course, has yet to be exposed to my magnificent photography, and he's very excited, aren't you, Zander? Yes, you are. Good answer. Poor fella. It is such a nice colour. Very lovely indeed. That might be a bit of a winner, everybody. I'll show you just now. Just enjoy it for now. Gosh, it is quite post-apocalyptic. The wind is blowing at quite a speed, and it's blown me, it's blown my microphone in the way. Here we are. Now that on the right hand side of the tree that you're looking at, which is just above the golden orb of the sun, is a red-billed buffalo weaver's nest. Now, in some what one might term survival books, you will read that you can find the direction by looking at the red-billed buffalo weaver's nest. Apparently they're always on the northwestern side of a tree. In this case that is true, but I would say that there are probably about 75% of them on the northwestern side of the tree, which means that you can get yourself into rather a lot of trouble if you happen to try and find northwest using 25% of the red-billed buffalo weaver's nests. A much better way of finding the direction, of course, would be just to simply assume that the sun is going down in the west, which it will every day unless there has been some kind of calamity in the universe, in which case, well, we probably wouldn't be around. Now, Zander, I know that you're desperate to see my photograph, so because you've asked so nicely, I will show it to you. There you are. You may now show everybody else, because they are all aching to see my skills. Eh? There we are. Well done. Look at that, everybody. Astonishing. Now, Zander, of course, doesn't know me very well, so he's going to tell me that's a very nice picture. But when Dave gets back, he, of course, will tell me all of the things that I did wrong when I took that picture. Thank you, Zander. Right, on we go. Hello, Brian. You're 11 years old and you're in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. You say your grandfather made a small lake and you want to call it after Tingana. Lake Tingana, I think, is a brilliant name for a lake. And you want to know what it means in the local language. Apparently it means shy. So if you're shy and retiring, well, then Tingana's a good name. I still think it, regardless of whether your lake is shy or not, I think it's a really good name for a lake. Tingana isn't shy anymore, but apparently he used to be as a youngster. There are some impala, everybody. The wind is really starting to get up now. They're just off through there, into the setting sun again. Beautiful. And they are all doing rather well, despite the drought, and that of course because they browse and they graze. But just look at the colours at this time of year, it's so special. I don't know, there's something about gold mixed with grey that I really like. Let me just try and see if I haven't pushed the mute button. No, I haven't. Something about gold and grey that I really like, and so when the sun is shining like this onto the greying vegetation, I think it's beautiful. James Richard, you're asking about black-faced impala. Now, if you're wondering, everybody, what a black-faced impala looks like, it looks like an impala with a Zander, with a black face, correct, well done. They almost look identical, but they are rare, different subspecies. And James Richard, you want to know why should they be rare when this one is so common and doing so very well? Well, I suppose the answer would be mainly because they only occur in a very small part of the world, and that's northwestern Namibia, up in Etosha and sort of into the Kouakaveld and southern Angola. Now, the only reason really that that makes them rare is that they have become separated, geographically separated from this subspecies. So, you know, they would never have been that widely spread. I suppose at a time when the area between there and the current range of the standard issue impala was wetter, they would have mixed together, but many hundreds and probably thousands of years ago that population became separated, and that's why it's I suppose you'd describe it as threatened because there aren't very many of them, but they're actually okay, you know. I mean, it's not like they're being poached, it's not like they're being persecuted, but they live in you know, very vast areas where there are not many people, and they do okay. But they live in fairly marginal territory, very dry, very kind of arid areas. I also think that they're probably slightly better adapted to eating or to surviving without water than our standard issue impala is. But I wouldn't describe them as, say, something like a giant sable, for example, which is most definitely an endangered species. Endangered because it's hunted and poached and persecuted. The black-faced impala isn't persecuted. Now, Joyce, you're in New Hampshire and we're looking at that impala there through the woodland, and you're saying, has anyone seen Nelson, the one-eyed impala? Very appropriate question, given that I'm wearing a naval cap, as we say, as we have seen. Admiral Nelson, I'm afraid, Joyce, we have not seen for some time. I suspect quite strongly that he has gone the way of all flesh and been devoured by some predator who snuck up on him on the left-hand side, where he was unable to see it. But that said, he might be fine, but his eyes just healed and we haven't seen him. But I think quite strong possibility that he's been devoured. Righty, on we go. Oh, there we go. Herbert, who is sitting in the final control, says that I'm talking absolute rubbish, and that he saw Nelson 2 weeks ago on Philemon's cut line. That's just over there. Sorry about that, Herbert. And Joyce, you'll be pleased to know that Herbert is a lot sharper than I am. He spotted Nelson, and Nelson I don't know if Nelson spotted Herbert, depends which side he was facing, but that's good news for Nelson. Let's go back across to Jamie and see what she's doing now.
Oh, coming to us. We are on our way to Buffelshoek Dam to find out what's happening there, and actually just discussing Nelson the impala and how well he's done to survive as long as he has. It just goes to show the resilience of the creatures out here, and it's one of the reasons why I have faith in that little lion cub healing up and being able to survive. It's going to be tough for it, and it will probably lose condition and get thin, but because it's got a whole pride behind it, Mom is never going to leave it alone, or leave it behind at least. So if she goes to fetch the other cubs to take it to some food, she'll wait for that cub to catch up with her. And hope, most importantly, that it will be able to heal up in time. Sorry, I thought I saw an interesting footprint. Did I? Sort of. A not very clear, interesting footprint. It's, yeah, it's pretty much obscured. And in fact, it's a combination of different tracks. Nope, I didn't see an interesting footprint. I saw a lot of different footprints in the sand. This wind, it is howling. It's making everything hide away as well. And all the animals, as soon as they see us coming, because we come as a surprise, if they don't hear us, if we're driving into where the wind's coming from at the moment, or it feels that way. So if it blows our sound and our smell away from them, all of a sudden we just appear and they all get a fright and dash off. Animals don't like this windy weather. The Nkuhumas and Karula and Tingana and all of our big cats, they're going to have a field day tonight, especially, I think it's new moon. It is. It's either new moon or there's a slight waning crescent. Well, it's going to be very dark and very windy. A time for the prey animals to shaking in their hooves and moving towards open spaces where they can huddle together and watch for any predators moving around that area. Lots of animals are going to be sleeping on quarantine clearings tonight. Not that I blame them. Imagine having to feel that way constantly knowing that there might be a predator around the next bush to keep an eye out for. It must be utterly exhausting being constantly on the edge, living constantly on the edge. And whoa, constantly on the edge, James has found some more impala.
Some more impala, everybody, and there's quite an interesting situation going on here. There's some rutting. There, you can hear that. It's males rutting. And I've spoken of the second rut, or the second mating season. That happens in sort of late-ish September. And so I guess a lot of these rams will maintain the testosterone levels at higher than non-breeding season levels until maybe that breeding season is over. It's a secondary breeding season. Very few of the ewes will be impregnated during the September rut, but it can happen. And I think that's why we're still getting a little bit of them grunting at each other and shouting. It is wonderful to watch them running and seeing so many of them. As James Richard has pointed out, our impala here seem to be doing very well. Lovely colours there, chestnut colours versus the green and the grey, again just very lovely indeed. The sun is about to, in fact I think the sun has set, and so our little plan from here, our sort of evening plan as we go towards the darkness, is going to be to head towards the northern section of the reserve around Sydney's Dam, see if anything has come down to drink there. It was, as we said, 80 degrees Fahrenheit today, So that's quite hot. There may be a few things coming down to drink. Alternatively, we might find a thirsty leopard or two. Righty, I think that's enough impala for the day. Oof, in fact it isn't, you know, this is a massive herd. There's a whole lot more of them coming. There must be upward of 100 animals here. Gee whiz, look at them all. It's difficult to know where they're going. I suppose they could be coming from Sydney's dam, but that's quite a long way from here. I don't know if any of you have been watching the Djuma Dam cam. They might have been having a drink there, but they do have to drink. And that's why this herd is so big. It's why it's so concentrated. It's because the water is so concentrated. So the herds too will be, they're still streaming out of the bush, both sides of us. Isn't that nice? Lots and lots. And they will give birth in November, of course, so the females, or the ewes, will now start to show. By show, I mean, of course, their bellies will start to look a bit fuller. Excuse me there. A bit of air came bubbling up my esophagus. You didn't really need to know that, but I thought I'd tell you anyway. You really didn't need to know that at all. Beautiful. Look at them all. Now, I just want to show you quickly. Zanda, if you zoom all the way out, it's only this kind of time of year that we're able to sort of see from a vantage point like this where we are, but you can see a road there. Can you see the road? If you just zoom in on that, that is Philemon's Dip, everybody. And it's probably about, ooh, as the crow flies, I don't know, about 1 kilometer, I guess. And we never see it when the trees are there, and you can't, it's very difficult to kind of, when you look at a vista like this, see exactly where you are and where everything is laid out. It's quite nice to be able to see it there like that. Righty, let us move on from here. Just in case you think I have thieved this hat, everybody, I have made a call on the radio to see if anyone's lost it. But until the owner either owns up or goes home, I shall keep it safe. No ways. James Bear, you say you served as a radio operator on the USS Missouri many years ago. That is just fantastic. Can you tell us if this is a genuine USS Missouri hat or not? Or if it is something that somebody's picked up in a gift store or something like that? That is fantastic news. Thank you so much for that. What a astounding coincidence. That's amazing. James Bear, radio operator on the USS Missouri. I suppose if it is genuine, you'll also be able to tell us on what sort of rank would wear a hat like this. That's amazing. Is the USS Missouri still in commission, everyone? Or has it been decommissioned? has been decommissioned apparently, thank you. I don't know how Kirsten knew that. Unless VM is sitting next to her. Alright, we're going on to the plains here. We'll get a quick last view of the Drakensberg as they disappear, and then we'll head north towards Sydney's Dam. I'll drive a little bit quicker. There's quite a nice glow over the mountains. Strong northwest wind. Cannot believe we're being watched by the radio operator of this random hat that I happened to find in the middle of the bush. That's marvelous. Alrighty. Last time I came through this area, there were leaves everywhere, and the grass was completely devoid. Let's see what it looks like now. Here we go, onto the plains of Impala Plains. Right. Now, where's Shadow and her cub and Sandile all in one wonderful happy family eating on an impala? Not here. There are the Drakensberg Mountains, you can see off to the west. The sun disappearing down over them. We're not on a they're not sloping like that, everyone. I parked on a slope, so poor old Zander has to level the camera. There we go. Very pretty. And you know what? Before I went on leave, you can see where the sun went down there. Before I went on leave 2 weeks ago, the sun was still to the right-hand side of that sort of last slope there. So it is moving steadily south as we go towards the equinox. When is the equinox? I think it must be mid-September or so. That will be the autumnal equinox for you guys, for most of you, except for Erin in New Zealand, and those watching the southern hemisphere. It will be the spring equinox for us. Alright, Zander, on we go. This car is starting to struggle to start. Let's put on a few lights. Thank you, Eleanor. The USS Missouri, now a decommissioned ship in a memorial ship and open to the public. I suspect, unfortunately, well, probably fortunately for the owner, but unfortunately for me, that this hat comes from the gift shop from the USS Missouri rather than from an actual serving naval person. There's not a lot going on around this particular area. Just in case you're wondering if Jamie's disappeared off the face of the earth, now she has to a large extent. That's because the signal on Wendy is very dodgy. Another big clearing up ahead here, where we might be able to find some form of animal or bird life. What you got? Nothing. Now, Nico, nice one from you about black impala. Now, this is not to be confused with black-faced impala. So black-faced impala found in Etosha and Coacaveld, southern Angola, and they look exactly like our impala, just with a black face. Then you do get something called a black impala. Now, a black impala is a melanistic impala in the same way that a black leopard is a melanistic leopard. And Nico, no, we wouldn't find them in the reserve here. I suppose there might be a very, very tiny chance that one of them would be born here, but they're an aberration, and they are bred in captivity. Exotic game breeding in this country seems to be massive business at the moment. So you can breed black impala, they breed, I think, a golden mantled impala and all sorts of weird and wonderful types of wildebeest and impala and buffalo and all that sort of thing. Biologically, there is absolutely no conservation value in it at all, because those kinds of animals, while they do occur every so often in the wild, they're not common, and so it's not like they are verging on extinction or anything like that. The populations carry the genes for those black impala, for things like, what do they call them? It's not a rosy leopard, it's basically a sort of a pinkish coloured leopard as opposed to a black one. You get those as well in the wild some places. There's one up in Leidenberg that they found recently, but that's in the wild, and that's great. But no, black impala, I mean, you'd be more than stunned if you found one on a reserve like this. I mean, they must have at some stage been in the wild, because otherwise they wouldn't occur in captivity. Not much going on there. Now, we'll do the next little bit of Impala Road and then head towards Sydney's Dam. I'm also quite hoping those jackals, I don't know if you've seen them while I've been away, but the jackals up around Sandy Patch Road that took up residence for a little while before I went on leave, I'm rather hoping they'll be there now. Give us something to look at in the night. And Jerry says they haven't been seen apparently, which is a bit sad. No tracks. It'll be time to stop and have a bit of a listen. For you can't see, you must listen. Okay, so we'll put up the ambient sound, see what you can hear. I'll be quiet for 20 seconds. White-browed scrub robin. Drongos. Franklins. Bird flying off, very cross. Scimitar. And that's about all. And just a bit of wind blowing now through the tops of the trees. Arrow-marked babblers. Quack, 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 quack. And that's about all. And just this beautiful smell. Alrighty, let's press on from here. In the meantime, let's go across to Jamie. I know that there was an owl she was trying to find, quite a rare one that we don't see very often, but I don't think she had any signal, so she can tell you about that.
And James is absolutely right. It was slightly devastating. I shed a few tears. Brian was, I saw, wiping his eyes discreetly on his sleeve. For we had two white-faced owls on a bush willow right next to Bubblezook Dam, out almost in the open. One of them looked absurd. It looked like a little stick. It looked like a caricature of an owl. It was so... And devastatingly, we haven't had any signal basically since we left the lions. It definitely isn't working terribly well. I've moved back to an area where hopefully we should have some good signal. However, Ephraim tells me on the Game Drive channel that he's actually seen those birds there a couple of days in a row, which is good news because it means that we will be able to hopefully, maybe, see them in the future as soon as Wendy seems to get up and running, or if Rusty happens to be in the Buffelshoek Dam area. And the little owl species do reuse perch areas, so favorite perch spots where they go and they sit and they spend their day. They do reuse them from all the way from the Verreaux's, actually I said little owl species, all of them do it. The Verreaux's eagle owls in the jackalberries around Gowrie Cutline, the little barred owlets and pearl spotted owlets that have their favorite spots in the Mulwati drainage. They will all spend a great deal of time in the same place. And I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, we'll be able to add, because I bet you, for some of you, a white-faced owl is a new one for your bird list. I'm not sure when last you saw a white-faced owl, but it'll be one to add to the collection. But unfortunately for today, it will not be the case. As I said, Brian and myself shed some tears and then we moved on, desperately trying to recover ourselves from the sadness that was that disappointment. We enjoyed seeing them though. Yes, absolutely. 2 of them, male and female.
And the hornbill.
And a hornbill, that's very true. I forgot about the hornbill, it was awesome. 2 owls and 1 hornbill. 1 hornbill looking very out of place, I have to say. Oh yeah, I wonder where we'll have signal. Definitely on quarantine. And there's, as I said, lots of animals are going to be going towards quarantine clearings to find themselves a nice patch, although the wind all of a sudden has gone completely. Or it certainly feels like it's gone completely. Just dropped totally. But perhaps going to check out quarantine is not such a bad idea. And just an update on what was happening. The hippo was at Buffelshoek Dam still. I'm pretty sure it's the same hippo. I mean, we don't know. It's relatively difficult to identify individual hippos, but at least from the view that we get of them. But I'm relatively certain it's the same hippo that we usually see there. So he was there. The water level is a little bit lower, as is to be expected. And otherwise, all very, very quiet. And I have to tell you something, the first thing I'm going to do tomorrow evening on the Sunset Safari is go and find you those owls. I'm desperate to. I really want you to have a chance to see them. They're so interesting looking. They look like an artist's, a sort of vaguely, what's the word? I mean, I'm so not arty. Nor is my art history or description all that good. Almost a sort of an impressionistic expression of an owl. They look exaggerated. All of their features look distorted and exaggerated. They look very different to our other owl species. I'll have to show you. You won't understand what I mean unless I show you. Brian, you know what I mean. Yeah. It looks as though somebody stretched one out a little bit, but never stretched it outwards, just upwards. I was answering, I think it was Cameron's question about the temperature and the fact that even though it is midwinter, it is now incredibly warm, and I'm noticing now that the wind has dropped. For July, no, JB, it's August. For August, it is really lovely and warm. Perhaps this is the hot air being blown ahead of a cold front, I'm not sure. But I'm enjoying it. I'm going to make the most of it for now and pretend that spring really is just around the corner. But just like July, August likes to trick people into a false sense of security before freezing, dropping to the lowest temperatures that we've had all year, just out of the blue sometime. I'm grinning because Jennifer in San Francisco would like to see another thumb, or see the thumb again. Sorry, not another thumb. Who doesn't want to see the other thumb? The other thumb's not nearly as interesting as the thumb. So there you go, Jennifer. Jennifer, you wanted me to explain what it is. I can't, but Brian can. Oh, hold on, sorry, I forgot Brian has to turn up, because he's had to turn his mic right the way down for the ambient sound. That's my fault. Poor Brian can't talk to you at the moment because he's got no mic.
There we go.
There we go. Everybody can hear Brian. What is the thumb today, Brian?
It was a kind of a bearded thumb. It was a rush design. I've just got back from leave. I need to start thinking again.
There we go. So that is for Jennifer. Brian's creativity when it comes to the thumb is absolutely extraordinary. My favorite one was recently, what was it, Brian? I've forgotten.
Pinchy whiner.
That was it. It was Pinchy whiner. It was Pinchy whiner. So Pinchy whiner is the freshwater crab that lives in one of the mud wallows, just a little bit to the west of where we are now. And Pinchy whiner is a crab, and the thumb, when dressed as Pinchy whiner crab, but with a top hat on, was the best. It really, truly was the best. That was my favorite thumb so far. The thumb, of course, is the master of disguise, and you never know what particular outfit the thumb will be wearing when. You missed International Tiger Day, Brian. Could have done a tiger.
Yeah.
But you're on leave. What does the thumb wear when he's on leave?
He's naked most of the time.
Ah, right. I see. Fair enough. Should have known. Makes total sense. The thumb is a nudist whenever he's on leave.
An exhibitionist, some would say.
There you go, everyone. The thumb is not to be interrupted whilst on holiday. I'm attempting to disentangle myself. Something I've managed to tie myself in a knot similar to, I think, what Zander managed earlier. Oopsie. Watch the road as well. There we go. Oh no, the spotlight is trapped underneath the machete. You know, it's a little bit terrifying. We'll just pop that over there. You never know when you might need to use our panga or our machete. But now that I've managed to clear my spotlight, which is what I was actually after, let's go across to James to find out how he plans on spending the last few moments of his evening.
Hello, everybody. You heard Zander's voice there for the first time. I'm just pretending this is the USS Missouri and that I'm its captain. I'm not actually doing that. We came here basically hoping that there might be some sign of our hyenas. We don't know where they've gone. We think maybe some Mbambili. Nobody's found a den for them there. We don't know where our new youngsters have gone. There are no fresh hyena tracks here. This is the Aubrey's Road den. And well, it's just rather sad because we spent so many months enjoying them, and now they've absconded somewhere, and I'm not sure where it is. I'm not convinced they're on Simbambili, given the fact that nobody's found them there. Maybe on Biffleshoek, I don't know. Anyway, the other thing we found here is, I think, something quite splendid. And its botanical name is Gossypium herbaceum. Gossypium herbaceum. And it is, of course, wild cotton. And it's quite closely related to the sort of, the normal version of cotton. And interestingly, in some areas where they used to try and grow cotton in South Africa, you actually can't tell the difference between the two plants. But it is, it's really just like cotton. It doesn't grow, I don't think it produces nearly the same amount of fiber as a standard issue cotton plant, but there it is. You can burn it. It's very good for burning. If you're trying to start a fire, this is a good plant to find. There you are, Zander. I will give that to you as a gift from you to me on our first drive. Make sure you keep it forever and ever and ever. Otherwise I'll be deeply insulted. Let me plug myself back in and we shall continue. I'll get that off my face. Righty. Gossypium herbaceum. I remember that when I was working up in Palaboa, which is about, I don't know, about 150 kilometers north of where we are now, I was teaching, and my students were all sort of, they were all young Shangans between the age of 20 and 30 odd, maybe 32 odd, I think Tanuka was 32, and they had done very little, almost no biology at all. And so we did the trees of the area, but of course learning them in English was just as easy as learning them in Latin. And so I taught them the English and the Latin names, both of which were just as easy to learn for them. And I remember Gossypium herbaceum being particularly one of the first ones we learnt. And one of my students went to do a formal tree course, and one of the instructors, you know, he was used to taking very rural people who didn't know any of the trees at all. He picked up one of these cotton wool plants, handed it around, said, "Does anybody know what this is?" expecting nobody to say anything. And Evidence was her name. Evidence Shipambwani put up her hand. She said, "I know, sir." And he said, "Okay, well, what is it?" And she didn't even miss a beat. She said, "Gossypium herbaceum." And his jaw hit the floor. "Who taught you that?" he said. And he was so amazed, and I was very proud, and I patted Evidence on the back and myself as well. She was brilliant. So that's my little story of Gossypium herbaceum. Zando now, of course, has his own story because he has a memento that he will keep for the rest of his days. Not so, Zander? Yes, exactly. Good answer. There we are. We'll go easy on Zander to start with. I shall shortly begin insulting him like I do Gendre, I'm sure. Amazing. I imagine probably in about 3 weeks, or maybe, 3 weeks, we'll probably shift the times again. I mean, there's nothing official about it yet, but you can see how we've got only 10 minutes left of drive, and there's still plenty of light around. I suppose I should be shining my spotlight. I'm just not very good at it, so I try to avoid it for as long as possible. Zander, of course, is now getting me with my spotlight technique at its maximum. Zander, before you arrived, I used to shine the spotlight like this. And it's obviously quite difficult to see anything when you do that. Now, Vera in Ohio, a very good question from you. Do birds use that cotton for nesting? They absolutely do. It's just not very common in this area, and so when they can find it, they certainly do. I've seen, I think I've seen sunbirds using it. I've seen possibly a few of the shrike species. I think they would also use it just to line their nests. It's normally spiders' webs that they use to kind of create the silk, but they will definitely use that as well. I'm trying to think what else would use it. I've definitely read about it being used, but I forget exactly. Nice one, Vera. Thank you for that. The spotlighting technique at the moment doesn't appear to be bearing us too much in the way of fruit. I'm sure Jamie is now highing slowly towards quarantine as we come to the closing of the drive, so let's go and find out if she's managed to find you some signal with an owl.
Found some signal. I'm not so sure about the owl part. So I heard a pearl-spotted owlet calling and I got really excited. But in hindsight, or at least with the ability to look a little bit closer, I have to tell you, we sure that's not an owl, Brian? Is it just a pile of junk? I mean, is it a spider web?
Maybe a spider web.
Maybe. Oh, I got so excited, but then the flappy bit at the back definitely doesn't work. It's definitely not an owl. How disappointing. I thought I'd managed to at least find you a pearl-spotted owlet, because I heard them calling. Let's see if the spiderweb calls back. Okay, it's a spiderweb. Okay, fair enough. We won't ever tell James about that. Ever. Kirsty's already told James, hasn't she? Yep, she has. And those are both spiderwebs. Well, moving on, let's pretend that didn't happen. Let's talk about something else, shall we? Not owl related, because apparently owls are just not, or at least the luck with owls is just not on my side. Let's go look for a bush baby instead for the last few moments, or a serval, or something that isn't feathered and nocturnal. Porcupine. And no, let's not talk about spiders or owls. Oh no, now James is on a collision course with me. I know, because he's lit up like a Christmas tree, as our vehicles always are. Blinding lights of Mr. Henry. Let's escape quickly before he comes and mocks me about my spiderweb. Oh no, he's sped up too. Oh no, you just blind him back. There's going to be some furious mocking here. There's no getting away from it. Just got to close my eyes and deal with it. Hi, good evening.
Something of a relief.
Pardon?
Something of a relief.
Is it?
Well, maybe
Whoa, you
because
do need light.
You are at least two living creatures.
Oh yes, has it been one of those after...
It has slightly. Once we left the elephants, not much going on.
Yes, us, well we had some very nice owls, and
Did
then
you?
some very nice spiderwebs, yes.
But you didn't see the owl, did you?
No,
No, bad luck.
very
Brian,
sad.
have you had a fun time?
I have had a splendid time, James.
How wonderful that you have had a splendid time.
It
I'm
is.
filled with joy for you.
Thank you. Have you had a wonderful time?
I have had a wonderful time with Xander.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Let me get him on shot here.
Yes, there he is, everybody. You can see he's slowly losing his hipsterness. He's wearing a t-shirt as opposed to a shirt that was previously owned by a lumberjack. Now we just have to cut his beard off. That we will do when he is asleep one evening. Right, as you were.
Oh, well thank you very much. Would you like to?
Back with you.
Oh, such a gentleman.
I do what I can.
Okay, bye-bye. Occasionally James comes past you in the camp, and I don't quite know what provokes it. James, of course, is the consummate performer, and he is as entertaining in person in real life as he is when he is presenting these live safaris. And occasionally James will walk past and just make tiny little noises at you out of nowhere, which is what he just did as we drove away, or talk to you in a really tiny, soft voice. You never know what you're going to get with James, and which way the conversation point is going to go, but it keeps us all on our toes, A and B, thoroughly entertained. Truly marvelous. Oh, that's a really lovely request from Tula Ann, who is 4 years old. It's lovely to have you, Tula Ann, and I'm sure that Brian would be happy to do a giraffe thumb for you.
Indeed I am.
There we go. So the thumb will be happy to dress up as a giraffe for Tula Ann. And so we come now to the end of our sunset safari on this beautiful, warm and balmy winter's evening, and time for us to say our farewells. So a big thank you to Brian and the thumb once again, as always, for his fantastic camera work, as it's lovely to have him back from leave, as well as to Kirsty and Jerry in Final Control. And most importantly, thank you to all of you watching across the globe. I hope you had a marvelous time, and that you will join us tomorrow for this sunrise safari. But for now, let me send you back across to the terribly witty, terribly smart and incredibly entertaining Mr. Henry for the last few moments of your sunset safari.
Oh, I'm blushing at such unbelievable compliments from somebody with a degree from Cambridge University who should not be calling anybody but herself smart, of course. Now, I was just thinking, as we were driving along here, looking at absolutely nothing at all, about when I was a guide, and you know, you've got people sitting on the back of the Land Rover paying vast amounts of money to see animals and for the pleasure of your company, and how relieving it was sometimes to come across another game drive so that you could, well, sort of say hello, and then you do ridiculous things, like I would try and go past them with my feet up on the dashboard like this, and sort of drive past our other guests, and they'd all sort of stare blankly in astonishment as we drove past. My guests would be fairly put out as well, but I always used to think it was very amusing indeed. It was in the days before I had much of a filter. Don't have much of a filter even now, but back then it was non-existent. Righty, well, we have 1 minute left, everybody, to find all the wonderful creatures of the night. Quickly, Zander, spot something. Well, people are going to think this is a desert. You know what, I think the quietness of this last little bit has been largely to do with the wind, which is now going down. No creatures of the night. All right, everybody, that's going to be it from us today. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been wonderful to talk to you. We've had some lovely conversations, especially about the elephants and the lions, I'm sure, with Jamie. Big thanks to Jamie and Brian. Lovely to have him back with his thumb, naked as it has been on leave. And a big thanks to Kirsten and Jerry in the final control, and to Zander on his first drive with me. We'll see you tomorrow at 6:30. Bye-bye.